Hello, welcome to Do It Yourself with Wayne. Today we're going to be planting potatoes, and this will be our second planting this year. I have another video where we just harvested potatoes from the bed that's right over that way, and right now we're in the middle of July, so we got about 120 days until our average first frost. We're in North Carolina, zone 7B. So we've got enough time to raise a crop of potatoes yet this year, so we're going to plant our second crop. I got my potatoes here. I'll show you how we prepared those here in a few minutes. Got a couple of tools. These should be the only tools I need. I got a bag of peat moss. We're going to add that to the bed. I'll explain to you a little bit more why I'm going to add that. We got our fertilizer, and we got cow manure. And I just want to say, none of these people are promoting or sponsoring my videos. I don't necessarily recommend these brands. I've used other brands in the past. It just happens to be what I've got today. So let's start out by talking about the potatoes. Now, for talking about potatoes, I moved out here in the shade so you can see what I'm showing you a little bit better. Over in the bright sun, it's kind of hard to get a good image on things. But these are my potatoes. Actually, these are just white potatoes from the grocery store. I don't really even know what variety they are. There's a little bit of a closer view. Let's see if it'll focus on that real good. There we go. And these started sprouting in the pantry. There we go. So we're going to plant them for our fall planting of our potatoes. And we cut them where there's eyes, and these right here are called eyes if you're not familiar with that. Okay. And this one I'm not going to cut because it's only got a couple of eyes and they're close together. So I'll plant this one whole. Most of them are a little bit larger, and I cut them so that there was eyes on each one, on each piece I cut. At least, try to get at least two, but no less than one of the eyes that's starting to sprout on each piece you cut. And also, it's very important that you cut your potatoes a couple of days so this part can kind of dry and get hardened. That's important to help prevent disease. And it also can help prevent your potatoes from rotting in the ground before they sprout. So if you cut them early, give them 2 days or as close as you can to let this part dry up, and you'll have better success with your potatoes coming up and growing for you. If you watched my video about our potato harvest that we just did, a lot of my dirt ended up in clods like this. It wasn't as flaky and soft as I would like. All this is from compost, but sometimes it gets a little hard. And I turned this, I took my fork, I went down, and I did this all over. As you can see, a lot of it is just real soft stuff, but I'm going to throw that rock out. I'm going to further amend this with the peat moss, which will help make the soil a little more flaky and softer for the tubers to produce larger potatoes. So I'm going to cut the bag open, spread it out, mix it in a little bit, and then we'll go to the next step. Now I've got my peat moss mixed in with the soil, And I think my soil was a little lumpy because when I tilled it before, a couple days ago, I think I was getting down too deep and getting some of the clay soil that's actually below all the compost and stuff that I filled my raised bed with. So I'll have to remember, try not to do that in the future. But anyway, next I'm going to add the cow manure. I'll do it pretty much like I did the peat moss, but I'm not going to try and mix it quite as deep. It'll be more closer to the surface because it has nutrients in it that a plant needs, and it needs it early. So I just mix that in a little closer to the surface. Next, I'm going to dig the trenches to put my potatoes in, and I'm going to do 3 rows, which is what I did before. It worked out well. I'm going to dig the trenches somewhere between 4 to 6 inches deep, and then we'll get started planting our potatoes. Well, that's a pretty crooked row. See if we can straighten it up a little bit. Now those rows might not exactly be 4 to 6 inches deep, but I don't have a lot of room to spread the soil out. But the next thing I'm going to do is put my fertilizer in there. I'm going to take a cup like this, which is about the size of a red Solo cup, about half full, and I'm going to do that one time in each row. Like I said, about half full. I said about a half of that cup, or maybe just a hair more per row. My rows are 8 feet long. This bed, I don't know if I mentioned it before, is 4 feet wide, 8 feet long. So that's the size bed that I'm working with. So now I'm going to take my trowel and I'm just going to stir up this in the bottom. If I had more room to work, I would use my hoe because it'd be a little quicker, a little faster, a little easier. But I don't have a lot of room for the excess soil to be moved around. So I'm just going to use my trowel and stir up the soil in the bottom. You don't want to plant your potatoes right on your fertilizer because you're more likely to burn the potatoes and the roots, and then they don't produce for you. Now it's time to actually plant the potatoes. And as I showed you before, the way I cut my potatoes, they've all got at least 1 or 2 eyes, hopefully 2, maybe more. But you're planting with the eyes straight up. So I'm going to lay my potatoes in here first. Just kind of spread them out a little bit and see how far they go. Typically I put the smaller ones toward the end. You just saw me move that one there. Put the larger ones where they're more likely to do better. Now I've got one potato here. It's actually, I know it's a Yukon Gold because it's one we dug up just a few days ago out of our early harvest. And it had started sprouting, and I'm gonna let it sit out for another day or two, maybe a little longer before I actually plant it. But I will be planting it in this bed, maybe down here at this end. In fact, I think I'll put it right there. I just won't bury it yet. So anyway, that's where I'm gonna plant them. That's the spacing, roughly anyway. And I'm just gonna take and just wiggle them down in the soil a little bit because my can't even think of the word. My rows are not quite as deep as I would like. So to make up for that, when I put them in here, I just wiggle them in a little bit and give them a little bit deeper, and they'll be fine. The main thing is put them in the ground where the eyes are pointing straight up, or close to straight up anyway. Too close. Okay, now I just cover them up. Just take that soil off to the sides that I pulled out to make the row. Just push them over, cover up the tops. And there we go. The bed looks like we didn't do anything to it now except disturb the soil. Now I'll water everything. You may have also noticed I've got drip irrigation out here. I am working on my drip irrigation a little bit. I did have rows that went the full length of this, and I'm cutting them back so that I have a cutoff for this section of bed, and I have a cutoff for that section. By the way, this is my asparagus, doing really good this year. But when I'm through, I'll have 4 drip lines in this section, and I got 3 rows. I'll put a drip line here, one there, and one over the side. That way, basically, there will be a drip line on either side of each row to keep the bed watered. I'm getting out of breath. So anyway, that's how I keep them watered. And when they get up about so high, I'll come back and I'll do a top dressing of fertilize. Probably something more with just potassium and whatever the other one is, the P and the K, whatever the last 2 numbers of normal fertilizer is. After they start coming up, you don't want a lot of nitrogen, so I won't be using the 10-10-10 again. And I can't remember if I remember, but the fertilizer that I use in the bottom of the rows is just 10-10-10, just some fertilizer with 3 numbers that are the same. That's a good basic fertilizer for getting started. But after your potatoes start coming up and you got some foliage, you don't want a lot of extra nitrogen, which is the first number of your 10-10-10. So I'll use different things that promote the second and the third numbers, which is potassium and I forget what the second 2 names are, but anyway, not, you know, without the nitrogen content, and that will help them produce larger, better potatoes. So anyway, that's what we're doing. If you enjoyed this video, if you find something useful, we'd really appreciate it if you click like on our video and subscribe to our channel. Those things really help us to grow our channel and to bring you more videos like this. And as I said before, we do have a video where we harvested our earlier potatoes. I'll put a link in the description to that. There's also links in the description to other things that we've done. And we do have a YouTube watch list about gardening in general. I'll put a link to that in the description as well. But anyway, we really appreciate you visiting. Do It Yourself with Wayne, and we hope you have a great gardening season.